have some terrific topics to talk about today. We're going to talk about how marketing decision making is making a very, very large paradigm shift. And I'll go through exactly what attributes kind of we have in the current state or the past state of the past 35 or 40 years of marketing, and how that shift is happening currently now to a much more decision science-based approach. I'm going to go over a great case study to make all this stuff real with Gregg. We're going to talk about what we're doing with Fidelity, and very importantly, removing bias, politics, and emotion out of the marketing decision-making process and making it far more quantitatively based and a lot more modeling for the decision-making process. We're going to take the steps that it looks like. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of different best practices today, as well as some pitfalls and things to look out for. All right. So the current state, as we've all been living as marketers, is a very instinct and intuitive-based approach, right? It is corrective in nature. You put some stuff in market, you see how it works. If it works, that's great. If it doesn't work, then you go and you make some changes. Optimization takes years, if not a great many months, within the system to actually work, because you put things in market, you may wait 4 or 5 months to see what happens, and then you may make some changes. What you also have is a lot of gut, and you're really kind of basing things off of efficiency. So you have a lot of old school direct marketing metrics like cost pers. Now we're moving to is a much more fact-driven, modeling-based approach that is more predictive. It is more directive, taking the emotion out of it, and we're really, instead of looking for efficiency, we are now gunning towards optimization. So there are a couple of great things that come out of this. The first one is the traditional tension convention between marketing and finance is now being alleviated as we're developing quantitative platforms for everybody to kind of make the same decisions together, so you're having a common language at all the different stakeholder groups. We have great insights and action items, so you're not just having some pedantic PowerPoint, right, some math that people just can't use. And we're really kind of focusing on outcomes and business optimization. So traditionally, a lot of the research-based metrics have been great for us marketers, but everybody else around the organization wasn't really sure what to do with them. Now what we're doing is we're talking about marketing, we're talking about research, but we're linking them in a fact-based approach to all of our outcomes like sales, unit sales, share of market, et cetera.
Great. So as he talked about, moving from instinct to fact-based was not easy, but Fidelity is making some great progress there. So to give you a sense of where we were, and frankly it wasn't that long ago, is decisions were really informed somewhat by facts, largely in the form of performance reporting. Some mixed modeling was involved, but mostly made through priorities and judgment. So in the case of priorities, if the business says we need to push a product, we're going to spend a bunch of money, that's what we're going to do. Or someone thinks this is a great idea, we're going to do that too. And really where we've evolved to, and we're still making progress there, but decisions are now a lot more balanced across those 4 things. And that has to be the case. You're never going to be in a situation where marketing mix modeling is going to be the solution to all problems. There is going to be business judgment. There is going to be business priorities that need to factor in, and they need to work together. I'm also a big fan of those pictures in magazines where they have the 2 images next to each other and you got to figure out what's different between the 2. So if you can figure that out between the 2, good, but this isn't a quiz. But the difference really, one of the big difference between the 2, not only in terms of priorities and judgment, but we've moved from kind of one-off models, which we're kind of calling ad hoc models here, to more recurring models. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So what does that mean, recurring models? And really what it means is we're talking about shortening the cycle times. And yes, we have to definitely jump over some walls to do this. We have to actually break through some walls as well. But where Fidelity has really come, again, only in probably the last 12 months or so, is we were doing our modeling efforts once a year. And we've now moved to quarterly. And in fact, this first month, at the end of this month, we will deliver our first monthly level models as well. So we're really shortening the cycle time in which we're getting information out to our business and our management team.
I don't want to underestimate how difficult it is to take optimization and market response modeling from a quarterly basis to a monthly basis. It is a big challenge for everybody on the greater team, both Fidelity and a market share. On the market share side, the talented guy, Rick Larkin, is sitting in the back, is managing the day-to-day team on really pushing the envelope in terms of data and process, gathering people together, as well as all the modeling frameworks and quantitative foundations from which we can actually do this on a monthly cycle. The amazing thing is, not only can we actually get a lot of great actions and insights on a monthly basis using actual data, but we actually go through and optimize all the different drivers that are under Fidelity's control within the marketing group at a very, very, very high frequency. And what we'll see a little bit later, the lift over business as usual, the ROI on the program is absolutely tremendous. So there are a couple things that are really important. If people think modeling is kind of like a big dork fest, right? You get a whole bunch of guys and they build a whole bunch of equations and they show some PowerPoint slides and they kind of call it a day. It's actually going a lot bigger than that, and one of the important things to do is to have an end state vision. So it is certainly a pain point, I'll talk about this in a little later, that analytics is done as a whole bunch of series of somewhat disjointed ad hoc projects, right? You build a model here, you do some reports over there, you have a bunch of really smart people, but there's no actual flow. And one of the reasons for that is there's no actual end state vision. So be able to affect the change that you want to change within your organization, you have to have that end state or that point of arrival, and that's where everything kind of will go and flow through too. And of course, obviously, you have to develop your roadmap to level set expectations about how you're actually going to get there.
And a big piece not only of setting a vision is you've got to get people on board with you. And so what we did is we established a steering committee at the highest, most levels where people could really influence. And the point of that group is to ensure, A, that we have senior level buy-in for this effort, but more importantly, that they understand it, they're participating in it, they're part of the decision-making process of what we do next, and it also ensures that our analysis, the scope of our work is relevant, right, to those stakeholders, and we're not doing things in a vacuum. If that happens, it will just blow up. So let's talk a little bit about and give you more specifics around what we've done at Fidelity over the past several years, but more particularly in the last year itself. And on two levels, the deliverables themselves, what we're actually doing, and second, what value, and probably more importantly, what value is that bringing to the company and to the management team. So the first generation of this, as I said earlier, we were doing annually. And its goal was to talk about and plan for the following year. That's really what it was done. And the other big piece of it was very backward looking, and it was the classic Jerry Maguire of show me the money, right? Tell me where it's coming from, I want to know. That's what it was. Well, what we've evolved to through this second generation, as I said, is we shifted to quarterly, so we're out there more frequently. The other piece is, and we were asked by management, is tell us what the brand impact is. We know that we can talk about specific media vehicles, but we need to understand the overarching impact of the brand. And we're able to do that by incorporating our tracking studies that happen through our market research group into the models and quantify that. Third piece you see there is we actually took our models from a national level, just looking at all US, and we went down to a DMA level, a geo level. We focused on 10 to start with. These were the top 10 DMAs in terms of sales, so that we could understand the localized impact of our marketing as well. And then the last piece, and this was more of an R&D kind of thing, is we began to run simulation routines really internally for, as Heath was kind of pointing out, our skeeks, so we could understand the sort of what if situations would happen if we move media up in one place and down in another. Not ready to go out and try to influence management decisions at that point, but we wanted to understand what it was telling us. Well, where we are now, Gen 3, this is where we are right now, is we're faster, we're getting faster. So we're now up to monthly refreshes, as I talked to you about. This is huge. The other piece is we're now up to 20 DMAs. It's actually 21, we rounded for nice numbers. But this represents about 80% of our sales, so we have a very good feeling that this is the right place to be. And the last piece is we're now running simulations and optimizations. There's been two very recent examples where we were asked to optimize our Q4 budget in order to drive acquisition. We ran probably 5, 10, Rick would probably say 20 scenarios to be able to bring to the management team and talk about that. And we influenced the media decisions that happened in Q4. This was a wholesale shift. And then the other piece is we're driving the 2012 plan as well, very significantly. Where we're going, and the last step is you're really just trying to take it another level deeper, and the level deeper here is we're trying to understand the customer segment impact, and we're trying to understand the product impact. So these are really kind of, they all piggybacked on one another, but really adding depth and breadth to the work.
Okay. So Gregg laid out a nice linear journey that we're taking together to be able to create and really push the envelope on market response modeling and being able to bring in all the assorted stakeholders around Fidelity, whether it's the finance office, operations, sales, even including the people that go through and manage the brick and mortar, right? All the branches. So as my old mentor at Omnicom, Tom Moss, used to say, inclusion breeds commitment. So people are included in this roadmap that was done. So when we started out, we had a lot of stuff. It was simple. We had cost per types of metrics. We had national level effective December, so it was very, very kind of broad-based. We had a very high-level product focus. It's looking at very major kind of buckets of different types of products, say retirement versus retail brokerage, and a very kind of cursory level understanding of media and messaging. And now what we've done is we're kind of moving to a new place where it is much more complex, but the complexity is also adding a lot of value. And so we as a team are working to get that the complexity delivered in a simple way to all the stakeholders. But now we have a much, much better solution to what we feel is a somewhat flawed last-click attribution framework that marketers currently use for digital. We're broadening the mix analysis to include different aspects of the business and really getting deeper into those product buckets so we have much more detailed kind of cross-sections. And lastly, zooming in on specific goals and optimizing towards acquisition. And so what we do is we work with all the different stakeholders on understanding their business goals, objectives, and challenges that they have, and ensuring that the work that we're doing is enabling this great decision-making process so they can go through and get the lift that they need.
So the question obviously is great, what's this all do? I do work for Fidelity Investments, and therefore I only can share certain sorts of things. So what I can tell you at the highest level in terms of acquisition and development, we're seeing an enormous lift from this work and what we're able to talk to the business about and what marketing is contributing to the business relative to what we would normally expect from, financial services heavily influenced by the market. So that's going to have a big impact just generally of ebbs and flows of that. But what we're able to do now is be able to talk to them about, through our marketing work, you're able to lift acquisition by 20% and development by 24%. Those are big numbers. Again, we're trying to there's a lot more detail underneath these numbers, but it's bringing enormous value to Fidelity.
Really important when kind of getting into this journey. I feel like a lot of people will start with a bit of proof of concept, a little bit of work, a little bit of modeling, small product, maybe think you take it at a national level, but I can't really quite stress this enough, is when you're putting together a market response kind of framework and building up a capacity and enabling all your different business stakeholders to go do this kind of work, an end-state vision is of critical importance. You need to have a point of arrival. You need to be going someplace together as a larger group, otherwise it won't necessarily work. So you want to do is you want to get traction in terms of adoption. You want to go affect change in the organization and make optimization not just an afterthought, right? It's something that a bunch of dorky guys kind of do in the back room, but really make it part of business process, have it included and baked into different management cycles. So that discipline and the direction is going to create that ongoing kind of platform from which people then kind of get behind the overall program and move together. It's very, very important for success.
Yeah, I keep hearing the word dorky. So, and although my daughter does ask me what I do, and when I try to tell her what I do, she does think it's pretty dorky. But let me talk about the importance here of this building a steady drumbeat of updates. And I don't want to overemphasize enough the importance of being out there. So I talked about at length here that we were out annually. There's very little value to being out there annually. The market moves too fast. Things are changing every day. You're not keeping up. And so you need to constantly be out there in front of management talking about this stuff. And what does it do? So consistency standpoint, that's the first thing. Why consistency? When I think back 12 months in the conversations that we were having with management, it was largely around methodology and not around insights. So it would be around things like, how are you coming up with that number? Why are you saying your reps aren't doing that? And that wasn't the point of the conversation at all. So we wanted to be able to guide the conversation, and we're not able to do that if you're not out there. We get caught up in re-educating every single time. When you're out there monthly, you don't have to do that. Action. I don't know how you can act if you're out there once a year. There's nothing to act on. You can try to influence the buying decisions of an annual plan, but I think back to the presentation that was just out there, and they talked about constantly reevaluating. You're not doing that if you're out there annually. Expansion. Candidly, pardon the language, but why in the hell would management want to expand what me and my team is doing if we're talking once a year? It won't happen. So you need to be out there, overemphasizing that. Trying to get this thing to work. There we go. Adoption. We talked about getting the stakeholder buy-in. That's really important. But again, you're not going to get that stakeholder buy-in if you're not out there. So by being out regularly, having conversations with your key stakeholders all the time, you will get people on board. And what you saw by the example I shared with you about them coming to us and saying, hey, we want to drive acquisition efforts in Q4. What do I need to do? They're jumping on board now. And the last piece is to Heath's point about an end state vision. There's no way you can go to senior management and say, hey, I got this vision out here and we're talking once a year. They're going to say, well, that's great, but that's no vision. So you've got to be present in front of this group with this work all the time. Now,
Avoiding the house of pain. I think there's some really, really important things to kind of talk about. The first one is boiling the ocean. If you want, if this type of competency or capacity doesn't exist, what you don't want to do is go to your stakeholder group and say, I'm going to start doing some market response models. I'm going to do 40 products and 75 markets and sales and revenue and margin and all this kind of stuff in the first go. It's probably going to explode and not really work. It'll take 3x longer than you originally thought. The work won't necessarily tie out, and what you'll have is the stakeholders kind of moving away from what it is that you're trying to do. And then there's a very, very big risk in this case the stuff's not going to get adopted. Cut up the work, carve it up into a nice logical linear roadmap. Stakeholder buy-in is also a critical path for success. You want to get as many people included in the process as you can, as early in the process as you can. Because what you want is for your recommendations and your insights and all the really smart business actionable stuff to get recommended and deployed in the marketplace. So by being able to include all these folks in the process, you'll get the buy-in that you need. And no real goals. I think it is a bit of an occupational hazard of analytics groups to be able just to run a whole bunch of stuff that's not necessarily tracking to a given place, because it's really driven by intellectual curiosity, not necessarily by business need. And so having that clear goal, taking a little extra time for discovery and doing your one-on-one stakeholder interviews and really thinking thoughtfully around what some of the business goals and challenges are will help you avoid that house of pain. Great. So I don't know if people attended Jeff Jones yesterday, but he flew through his slides. We flew through our slides today. And it's probably for, we practiced a couple times, but but anyways, so we're done. And if there's questions, we'd love to take them.